Hey everyone, welcome to the Nolan Rossi podcast. I'm glad you're here. I'm on week 4 of this 90-day opportunity to create this new relationship that I have with my body, where I'm making an intention, setting some goals, and trying to transform my body in some new ways. So where are we at week 4? Well, I'm down to 195 pounds, which I started at 210 at the start of this. I've shifted how many calories I'm eating. So I'm eating 2,000 calories now. And I am shifting my movement. Last week I talked about how I move, and I've been feeling really good with starting out at 30 minutes of walking, and I'm extending that into 60 minutes and even longer. And the way that I'm doing that is I wake up early in the morning and I go for a walk for about an hour. Sometimes I go to the gym and do a treadmill. Sometimes I just take a walk around my neighborhood. And then later on, I do some strength training, which takes about a half hour of my day. And then after that, I may go swimming. I may go for another walk for about 15 or 20 minutes. It just kind of depends on the day and how I'm feeling. I'm trying to aim for around 10,000, 15,000 steps a day. But I also think about movement in terms of time. And so I'm trying to move for at least an hour to an hour and a half per day. And it feels good. And I'm listening to my body and reacting and changing. And that's what this whole process is about. Now, outside of all those details about what I'm doing and how I'm changing things, there is something that's happened in this 4th week where dialed in is the way that I want to say it. Like, up until now, I have had some level of variety in my meals, some level of variety of when I'm doing my walks and working out. But yeah, something about when I started doing these walks in the morning, and then I figured out I'll do my workout like just after or before lunch. There's something really dialed in about where I'm at, where I feel like I know what I'm doing, where I'm headed, what are the meals that I like to repeat and are easy for me to make and I really enjoy. So yeah, there's something about this 4th week that I'm really settling in and finding my groove. And without forcing myself or disciplining myself into some sort of consistency, I'm just finding it. And that feels really good to feel good in the ways that I am trying to achieve my goals and see that there's actually a direct connection to the outcomes that I was hoping for. So yeah, so week 4 is dialed in and it's feeling good. Okay, so today we are going to be talking about this third area, the third leg of the stool that's supporting my goals, because we had how I nourish. I talked about how I move. And now I'm talking about how I grow. And this can be talked about in 2 ways, but the first is about strength and muscle growth. Okay, so let's talk about how I grow in relationship to being strong and maintaining strength. There are a couple factors here that I'm considering. The first is that I am putting myself in a calorie deficit. And as I talked about before, once you do that, your body wants to pull energy from other places. It can pull it from your fat, or it can pull it from your muscles. Now, I'm trying to keep the muscle because that's important to me. I want to hold on to that for a lot of reasons that I'll talk about in a little bit. But in order to hold on to that muscle, you need to send your body a few signals. And the first is what I've already talked about in targeting my protein intake, right? Because we need the protein that has the amino acids to actually build these muscles. They are the building blocks of muscle fibers. But the other part of it is that you have to give some stimulus. You have to give your body the information that, hey, we are using these muscles, so we need to hold on to those. And by doing consistent strength training, that is the signal you are telling your body. You're saying, hey, we're involved in some strenuous activity here. These muscles are being used. It's important. So hold on to the muscle and take the fat. That's what it's there for. Take the energy from there. And that is why that even in a calorie deficit with adequate protein intake and stimulus in resistance training, you can maintain, even grow muscles, and you'll certainly minimize the loss. And a big tell there, which I'm experiencing so far, is that even in this deficit, I'm seeing improvements in my strength training. From my research, that is one of the tells that most trainers talk about, that if you actually see your strength going down, if your performance in the gym is declining, that's a good sign that there's something else going on that you need to adjust for, whether it's calories or protein. So that's just something to keep in mind if you decide to go through this. It's one of the ways that we listen to our body and we adjust as needed. Now, the story of how I grow doesn't stop there. In fact, what I'm about to talk about is actually where it started for me, because I'm someone that's really interested in the idea of longevity in my life and holding on to a functional strength that will allow me to move and groove and enjoy this body for as long as I can. And that includes activities like surfing, but even day-to-day stuff like getting up off the ground and taking the groceries out of the car and lifting my kids up. I want to hold on and grow the strength that I have, so that I can enjoy life the way that I am currently, for an extended period of time, for as long as I can. And we know from research, from science, and from anecdotal lived experiences that maintaining muscle is really key to that. Because when skeletal muscle, this is the muscle that surrounds your bones, begins to deteriorate, then that's a big marker for health decline. This is where, the classic story of grandma falling and breaking her hip, or where osteoporosis starts to come in. Like, there's all these effects when we lose muscle mass. There are these downstream effects that happen. And so there's this, adage that if you don't use it, you will lose it. And so strength training is really key to maintaining this vitality throughout the extended years of your life. And muscle is just one side of the story, because providing this sort of resistance training, this intensity in a strength training workout not only stimulates muscle growth, which allows you to maintain muscle or grow it. It also affects bone density, which is another key factor in longevity. By putting yourself through these strenuous workouts, you're strengthening your muscles and you're strengthening your bones. But of course, if you're listening to this and this is new information to you for the first time, then you're going to be like me a few years ago, where you go, okay, well, but how do I actually do that? What is the right workout, or like the right way to approach it? Because again, I came from a place where I was just following systems or plans that other people had designed. And a lot of those systems are designed in a sort of scalable mass market product sort of way that doesn't ask the individual to react, or to learn, or to really embody any of the understanding. It's just do this and you will get the outcome. And there isn't a lot of information on like how to adjust, how to tweak, how to fit it into something that feels good and works for you. And so I've spent a lot of time diving into this world, which again is so foreign for me on the outset. And I could talk to you for an hour about things like workout splits and sets and reps and training for hypertrophy versus strength. We could talk about time under tension and mind-muscle connection. There are so many factors into this, just like anything else, like whatever you do, whatever your hobby is or your job. The minute that you open your door into this, into any given world, you find out there's all these details and rabbit holes and places that you can dive into and talk about and analyze, and it's all fascinating. But after spending a lot of time in the literature and listening to experts, I have walked away with 3 key areas that are really fundamental to my understanding and to the shifting of my understanding of what it means to build strength and to build muscle. Now, the first area is called progressive overload. And whether it is weights in the gym or body weight, strength training like calisthenics, or something like resistance bands, the idea is that in order to create the stimulus that tells your body to build more muscle, you need to overload that muscle, and you will need to progressively increase that every time you come back to the workout. What this means is that you want to see improvements. You can measure it by weeks, you can measure it by days, you can look at each set and each rep or the time under tension that you're applying. But there has to be this progressive overload for your body to continue to get the signal to build muscle. Now, the inverse of this is the idea of the plateau, where you start to work out, maybe you start to run, and it's difficult at first, and then you get to a point where your body adapts, and now it's easy for you to do that thing. And your body has adapted and has probably gotten stronger, or the endurance is better. But without progressively overloading your body, you will not continue to improve. And so you can spend a lot of time in the gym for months, years even. But if you are not taking this concept of progressive overload, if you're not deciding, okay, this week I'm actually going to push myself into a new area, then you will not continue to grow. And if you want to maintain, then that's fine. But my goal is to actually progress. And so I take this concept into every workout, every day, and every week. And I think it's important to point out that whereas previously I was following a system where sometimes progressive overload was built in, it's arbitrary, based on a general rule for the masses, an average. It wasn't until I started writing down every workout, every exercise, every rep, and taking notes at times, how a particular day felt, or maybe what my rest in between sets and exercises were, that I actually kind of had the information and data to look and to know that I was actually progressing. Now, the next area is this concept of working out until failure. This is taking the idea of progressive overload into a very specific area. And it's saying that you need to do a particular workout up until failure. Some people take the guidance of doing an exercise up until 1 or 2 reps until failure, meaning once you start doing these exercises, you've got a couple reps more left in the tank. And at times, it's advised that you actually take yourself to failure, to where you try to do one more movement and you simply can't finish it, because it's only at that point that you truly know that you've pushed yourself to its limits. Now, you need to have a lot of awareness, and I would say even time, to approach things from this until failure idea, because the last thing you want to do is get injured. And especially in the front end, like I was talking about, how I feel dialed in on this week 4, in my workouts and how I've been growing, there's been a lot of learning of like which exercises just feel good, which movements match my body's natural movements. But as I've settled into like what works for me and what feels comfortable, then I'm able to take this idea of progressive overload and zero in on this idea of until failure and really feel it and know it. And it's like the knowledge really sinks into my body. And so I can push myself closer to failure in a safe way where I know I'm not going to get injured. Because the last thing that you want to do is be in a mode where you really feel like you're dialed in and then an injury derails that. And this brings me to the last area that I want to talk about, and that's consistency. I have sorted out that I like working out about 4 or 5 days a week because it's really helpful for me to know that every day I am going to engage in the same sort of resistance strength training. But the most effective strength training plan is the one that you're going to be able to follow. So if your schedule is really busy and you can only work out 2 days a week or 3 days a week, then that is fine, because consistency is the key to success, is the key to reaching your goal. If you're like me, you've done something in your life where you got really excited and you were just all in doing that thing, whether it's a hobby or working out or something else, 4 or 5 days a week. That's all you could think about. You planned your whole day around it. And then something happens, life happens, and you fall off that habit. And so I'm trying to make changes that I'm going to take with me for the rest of my life. And so by incorporating things that I know that I can be consistent in, I'm setting myself up for the best possible outcome. And the reality is, someone working out 3 days a week for the next year is going to have incredible results compared to the person that tries to work out 6 days a week for a month and then falls off for a month and then comes back and then falls off and then comes back. So know that like the secret that I've learned from so many other people, from professionals, is consistency. So just be realistic about what you can do and start there, and then let your habits and your behaviors grow and change as your lifestyle allows it. Now, the last thing I just want to mention is how I grow is more than just about the muscles and the strength training. How I grow is how I grow in this challenge. And what I mean is I'm taking these concepts of progressive overload, of taking something until failure, and of consistency into every aspect of my life, right? I can think about consistency in terms of what I'm doing with how I'm eating. I can think about consistency in terms of how I'm scheduling my days and making space for myself and my work and my family and all those things. I think about progressive overload and until failure and how that is a key factor to learning about just about anything in life. How we can do things like start a business, and it's not until we fail at some things or get close to failing at some things that we actually learn and embody the lessons that that thing has for us. This is what I mean by like how this whole process has unlocked something in me. I've taken these concepts that are working in my body, and I'm realizing, whoa, I've used these sorts of mechanisms in my life to learn an instrument or to understand business better, to learn how to be a friend in a new way or show up for someone, to learn about myself. We often learn the most when we take ourselves to the end of something, and that can be uncomfortable. There's so many ways that these concepts come up in our lives. So how I grow is more than just about how I'm growing my strength, but how I'm growing holistically through this 90-day process. All right, that's it for how I grow. I hope that that was helpful for you. Until next time, be well.